Ladies and gentlemen, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. It has now been over 2 months since Call of Duty Warzone released, and in that time, we've already seen the game change a lot. From various meta changes, to new modes being added in, to mechanics being updated, and pretty much everything in between. And as time goes on and as things do change, so do the best strats when it comes to winning more games and also getting more kills. So today, I wanted to break down a handful of mistakes you could still be making that might be hindering your ability to win more games and get more kills. So if you enjoy the video at any point, or if you just find it helpful, let me know by dropping a like on it. And of course, if you're new here, I am always covering the latest Call of Duty news, intel, tips, tricks, updates, leaks, you name it, you'll find it right here on the channel. So feel free to subscribe with your notifications turned on to stay up to date with all of that. Also, if you do want to check out my Twitter and my Instagram, those are linked down below if you want to follow me over there. Anyways, getting right into tip number 1, this is something I see in the comments pretty much on every single video I post. Things like, Zach, how does your gun have no recoil? Zach, how is your aim so steady? Are you using a mod? Are you cheating? No, and even more no. It's actually pretty simple. It takes a bit of extra effort, but if you do put in the work, the game is going to feel so much easier. So basically, it all comes down to predictive recoil. What is that, you might ask? Well, we saw it back in Black Ops 4 as well, and this is a feature that makes it so that every time you shoot any weapon repeatedly, it is going to have the exact same recoil pattern every single time. So if you were to shoot just the MP7, for instance, without correcting the recoil at all, it is going to kick in the same way every time. So what I end up doing is I build my class set up the way I want, then I go into a private match and I go to a wall and I just shoot it. You know, 3 or 4 mags worth of just shooting into the wall. And from that, I am able to see what the recoil pattern is going to be. And from that point on, I'm able to know how the gun is going to kick when I go to engage. So in the case of the MP7, the recoil is nearly completely vertical, which means all I need to do is pull down slightly on my mouse or on my thumbstick, and it's going to feel like there is no recoil at all. And that strat works on every weapon in the game. So if you want to essentially counter recoil before it ever even comes into play, do yourself a favor and learn those recoil patterns for the weapons that you use the most. Now, tip number 2 for today is all about the self-revive feature, because while it is one of the most important things you want to buy during a match, there's also a way you can sort of cheese the system, if you will, and get more out of your self-revive than just an extra life. So here, say you go down and your team is engaged with the enemies, but there is a potential for you to get revived. Well, to make it easier on everyone, you can actually start your self-res, hit, 50% of the way, 60%. Ideally, the closer you are to fully self-resing yourself, the better. But do not do it all the way, because if your teammate swoops in and starts reviving you, it'll actually pick up where your self-revive left off. Meaning you can actually get revived really quickly and not have to waste a self-revive in the process. And even if your teammates can't, revive you immediately into the gunfight, you can just sit there and charge up the self-res, then let it cool down some, charge it up again, cool it down, rinse and repeat until someone is able to revive you. And that way you don't have to spend another 4,500 cash on another self-revive. Kind of a situational tip, yes, but certainly helpful nonetheless. In fact, there's actually quite a few situations in which you could be making a simple mistake that has a larger consequence that can honestly easily be fixed. Like, for instance, C4, I think is the best lethal equipment to run in all of Warzone. Sure, some may argue it's broken, others will say it's fine. Regardless of how you feel about it though, you gotta admit, it is perfect for countering vehicles, and also for deterring enemy players in certain situations. And if you want to be super effective with your C4, like we're talking hydro pump on a Charizard effective, right? You can simply double tap your interact button, so that's going to be square on PS4, I believe X on Xbox, and I think F by default on PC. And by doing that, your C4 is going to automatically detonate and you don't have to spend the time to pull out the physical detonator, which obviously is going to take your weapon away for a moment, and it can sort of just be an inconvenience all around. So make sure to take advantage of double tapping to blow up C4 in the future. Now, as I just mentioned, C4 is easily the best counter to vehicles. It's a one hit to everything except for the cargo trucks. However, C4 can also easily be countered as well, and this counter is now better than ever. Of course, we are talking about the trophy system here, which you can actually throw down on a vehicle and it'll block all incoming explosives. So C4, rockets, anything like that, and it'll keep your vehicle safe and sound all around. Honestly, I feel like a ton of people overlook the trophy system, and in my opinion, that is a pretty big mistake. Not to mention, recently, the trophy system's lifespan got increased to 10 minutes, so if you're not getting shot at by a million rockets or having a ton of C4 thrown at you, you can effectively have an immunity for 10 minutes and play really aggressive during that time. Now, another pretty big mistake that I see people making all the time is showing up on the radar. And we're not just talking about not using Ghost here, I'm talking about when they are actually shooting, which is arguably even worse since that is a constant ping of your location, whereas just showing up on a UAV is obviously only every few seconds. This is a pretty simple fix though. Use that suppressor. Monolithic is going to be your best bet. If you've got it, use it on pretty much everything, because early game, late game, it doesn't really matter. Showing up on the radar is just asking for a team to come and hunt you down, except you don't get the benefit of seeing how close they are like when you are a bounty target. So be sure to use those suppressors. Then getting into tip number 6, this one is another pretty small one, but a mistake that I see people making frequently is putting on armor the slow way. And yes, there is in fact a slow way. Really, there's not too much to this one. If you're on console, if you were to hold down the armor button, so for instance on PlayStation that's going to be triangle, it is going to put your armor on back to back to back in a quicker fashion than if you were to hold triangle, put on an armor plate, hold it again, put on a second one, so on and so forth. And then if you are on PC, I think by default it is the number 4 key to put armor on. If you were to just spam that a few times, it's going to have the same effect. And obviously, putting on armor faster is going to be incredibly important, especially in those more chaotic engagements. Now, I also want to talk about audio a little bit, because there are a few mistakes that people make here as well. The dialogue volume in-game is a setting that I would not necessarily have on full volume, let's say, just because you do always want to have an emphasis on the effects. But it is a setting that you still want to pay a lot of attention to, specifically for the enemy dropping in on your location voiceover prompt. This obviously triggers when an enemy is redeploying and parachuting in, on, or near your location, and recently the radius in which this prompt plays was actually reduced, but it is still a very prominent thing if you are in a hot spot on the map. So making sure that dialogue volume is audible at all times is honestly crucial. And so is paying attention to those in-game effects. And here I'm not just talking about footsteps. Most players will probably pay the most attention to footsteps and gunfire for obvious reasons, but we all know just how inconsistent the footstep audio actually is, which is why you really want to be listening for some other audio cues as well, including things like parachutes pulling, glass breaking, doors opening, and players coughing while in the gas, as all of those are going to give off an enemy's location more frequently than footsteps will, at least from my own experience. Moving on though, the next tip is all about learning certain buildings and locations on the map. This isn't so much of a mistake that players are making, but rather just something they're not doing, and this knowledge can ultimately help out a lot. So learning where buildings like the police station and gun stores are is going to be a huge help, because those always have ammo supplies in them. And that of course is free ammo, and that's never a bad thing. Also, learning where the common loot spawns and chest spawns are at your favorite landing spots is going to make it way easier to land and get geared quickly. So simple things like that will go a long way when it comes down to it. And so will weighing out the risk versus the reward in certain scenarios. Some players will ultimately tunnel vision on a squad and solely focus on trying to take them out. And if that engagement ends up lasting too long, or the zone messes with it, or if you end up getting third-partied, of course, then that engagement was just chalked all around. But when you are in a fight and you realize it's not going to be over in a few seconds, then you have to step back and say, hey, if we rotate out of this and try and push a different squad, is that going to be more worthwhile? Or should we rotate now to avoid the gas instead of potentially having to run from the gas alongside this team, which would then just cause double the trouble. So analyzing the situation from that standpoint can often lead to, I guess, a less stressful game overall. I also want to quickly mention two things about loadouts. Firstly here, don't make the mistake of not having a panic loadout. And what I mean by that is a loadout that you can quickly select, so either your first, second, or your last loadout, that if the time comes and you're in a real hurry to get your gear, you can quickly grab a crate and grab that class before it even has the chance to render in the weapon icon. That is going to make those late game respawns or those last second loadout drops come in handy and not be nearly as inconvenient to grab if you are in a sticky situation. Also, coordinate with your teammates to make sure you're not overusing the same equipment. You know, weapons isn't as much of a concern, but you don't need everyone running heartbeat sensors, you know? Maybe one or two for sure. One, I would say definitely, two at the max. But then every other squad member should be using something like stuns to make engagements easier, or smokes to make rotations easier, things like that that'll ultimately benefit the whole team more in the long run. Then, finally, tip number 13 is all about the gas mask, as this is something people will often see as sort of a red alert mechanic, meaning they see their character putting it on and realize, oh man, now I gotta move right here and now. But truly, unless your gas mask is on its last leg, it might actually be smarter to ride it out in the zone for a moment and potentially take your enemies by surprise. Obviously, this one is very situational, and this strat could be valid in certain situations and invalid in others. But when you do have a fresh mask, that can keep you alive in zone for a pretty decent amount of time. And flanking through the zone might be one of the best ways to surprise an enemy team and get some relatively easy kills, since no one is going to be expecting that. So just keep that in mind as well. Anyways, with all of that being said, those are some of the bigger mistakes you might be making and how to fix them here in Warzone. And that is going to wrap things up for today. If you guys enjoyed the video, or if you just found it helpful, let me know by dropping a like on it. And of course, if you're new here and you want to stay up to date with the latest Call of Duty news, intel, updates, leaks, and everything in between, feel free to subscribe with your notifications turned on. That way you'll always know whenever I upload a new video. As always, if you want to check out any of my partners, be sure to use code WHosImmortal on all Scuff, G Fuel, Control Freak, and Respawn products. All of those links can be found in the description below. And once again, thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.